For anyone who had watched or listened to my videos so far, it is clear that I speak in a weird accent and an unchiseled English. That is because I was born and still currently reside in Hungary, which became important to mention here since I'm going to talk about a game developed by fellow Hungarians. To be specific, the game was programmed by a certain Sándor Domokos, who, teamed up with the graphical artist László Udvardy, is also responsible for two other games I played, Burago Rally and Long Life. Back in 1996, my mother decided to buy me a gaming magazine called 576 KByte, a publication that originally contained reviews about C64 and Amiga games, hence the name. The company running the magazine was also in the business of publishing C64 games, and one of those games was Boom, which could be considered an attempt at making a clone of Doom, but realistically it was more about making an approximation to what it essentially was, a dungeon-crawling, monster-killing horror game from a first-person perspective. It could be that the idea behind making it was, if all those PC kids can have it, why not the Commodore 64 ones? Besides, there is a certain sense of challenge inherent to introducing new game genres to more limited hardware than the ones they were usually developed for. And I'm fairly convinced that in the case of Boom, the ability to conquer such a challenge came from the enthusiasm of the developer. And I don't think there even would have been an official release would the folks at 576 not have their own share of the same feeling. I know it's just guesswork, but I really don't think that deciding to release a C64 game in 1996 is purely a cold, calculated decision. After all, their publication was true enthusiast press at the time. I have no delusions, however, that the article was basically them promoting their own game, writing about how groundbreaking its technical features are and how they were achieved in new ingenious ways and something you cannot avoid in Hungary.
Yeah, it's yet another Hungarian game.
Oh yeah, always pulling the strings of national consciousness. It was and it is kinda expected in a small country that cultivated a collective inferiority and victim complex for itself and carefully masquerades it as pride. As you can hear, I'm a tiny bit salty and skeptical about my nation and nationality, but that's in a way part of why I was intrigued by the game, aside from the benefit of having no language barrier to face. In that regard though, really the only part of this game where we'd need to know Hungarian is the intro. And it's not like it has any information for us we should not miss. If you happen to read it, it's more like a testament to the fact that never in any point of history were my fellow countrymen great storytellers. It's also very reluctant to give us any specifics. We got a mysterious apocalyptic scenario where cities burn and people die. Maybe someone can save us? Yeah, that's it. Exciting, isn't it? But at least we got an intro, and I guess the pictures are nice, if we know what is even happening on them. Whatever, Silhouette with a shotgun guy will solve this apocalypse for everyone. Or maybe it's gonna be the bearded one on the GUI? Perhaps he is, but then who is the other angry dude on the cover? Firing a small cannon in one hand and holding a dynamite in the other. The greatest mystery of this game. As soon as we start playing the game, our bearded protagonist will find himself in some underground dungeon, unarmed with zero ammo, so the first thing on his to-do list is finding those items because there is no melee attack in this game. Without a firearm, he can easily become useless for any other purpose than being a living target. After he found something to shoot with, his objective is simple: find the exit point in each dungeon, collect keys to open doors, and do not die. Come to think of this, as much as the intro delegated the role of savior to us, all we ever do is finding a way out, without the requirement to actually save anyone, even by eliminating all the bad guys. But never mind, I'm just nitpicking at this point. Our enemies do not approve any of our ambitions, so they will try to hunt us down. And despite they basically are identical in terms of behavior, in the very least they come in a delightful variety of forms, ranging from simple humans through various types of mutants to hardly describable horrors. Although the way they are animated is as simplistic as it can be, and they just vanish when they are killed, Each of them seemed to be cleverly designed given the graphical limitations. In other words, they at least look interesting, so much so that encountering a new type of monster might be one of the main reasons to continue playing this game. Otherwise, grinding through 50 levels could become boring, even with the environment changing every 10 levels. I mean, true, from one dark dungeon into a differently styled dark dungeon, but nobody can say we don't have some degree of diversity here. What's different in Boom compared to normal FPS games, and the reason it cannot be called a Doom or even a Wolfenstein 3D clone, is that it lacks the smooth 360 degrees turning and replaces it with stepping from tiles to tiles. Ultimately, it plays like the old first-person dungeon crawler games like the Wizardry games, Deathbringer aka Galdringer's Domain, and the much newer Grimrock series, with the RPG elements stripped away and the crosshair added for aiming. Because of this, playing this game takes two sets of controls, one for moving around ourselves and one for moving around the crosshair, both limited to the keyboard, at least in the original version. I wouldn't fault anyone for saying that at least aiming could have been made so it could be optionally controlled through a joystick. For me, however, the keyboard-only approach was actually good enough, because at the time I played this game we didn't have much space in the house, so I had to put the keyboard on my lap if I wanted to type, but I couldn't hold the joystick at the same time. Nevertheless, this is a problem that was resolved by at least one correct version years ago. The simultaneous keyboard controls could feel uncomfortable at first, and I certainly didn't think aiming was necessary when I could just get in front of a monster and shoot. But of course, on the long run it wasn't a viable idea, since the crosshair is shifting with each shot and I needed to put it back in the center every now and then anyway, plus maneuvering takes more time, which the enemy uses to drain some of our precious health. In time I had to realize that the crosshair is possibly the most important thing to master here, especially if I want to use a machine gun efficiently. The machine gun is the most powerful weapon in the game that can cover an entire screen with multiple shots, and unfortunately also the most difficult one to handle, to the point of impracticality. I can almost guarantee you that if you use your ammo reserves for the two other weapons well, you almost never need to use the machine gun. You'll probably stick to the shotgun like I did, regardless of how slow it may feel sometimes. It makes a nice sound effect though. Boom is yet another C64 game that isn't very rich in audible content, outside of the intro and the ending, but in this case, silence is kind of fitting to the general theme of the game. What little sound we get to hear are various noise-based effects like steps and gunshots, and something that sounds like one of the creepiest noises accompanying an opening door. We can also hear some horrifying shriek before we get a game over screen after we lost all our health, with some gruesome depiction of our unfortunate fate. But I only say we can, cause most likely we won't, unless we want to die. The reason I say this is that all the things considered, Boom is an easy game to complete, as our enemies rarely put us into risky situations, and the on-screen map helps a lot when it comes to knowing wherever the hell we are. Eventually the initial sense of uncertainty and sparing use of ammo will change into a run and gun experience with a backwards difficulty curve, and all the player will want is to get to the end and be done with the game. That is about all I can tell you about Boom. It's certainly a nice looking and technically interesting game that definitely deserves a playthrough, even if only because it's something that even a half-casual gamer can chalk up as an accomplishment. On the other hand, one needs much patience and tolerance for monotony to get through it, but it's somewhat worth it, for the game at least rewards the effort with an ending that, compared to the vast majority of C64 games, can be described as decent. But that I won't spoil for you, just play Boom and see for yourself. Bye!